totally apologize, Steph, for not getting you any questions, which you've got a resolution in there that's direct Councillor Morse to amend the draft the new bylaws. Maybe we should just say that council
Direct staff
or direct the bylaws, and I'll help staff do it because I did the one for Cove Bay back then. But
okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I will apply. Thanks.
Perfect. Should we
I'll
have a
ghostwrite
recommendation?
the report.
Perfect. You're driving right now, Allison?
Alan's driving.
Okay. All right. Good. Public comment.
It's a public meeting.
Swearing.
Ignore the swearing, he says.
Okay. Public comment stuff, any? No.
No public.
Okay. So we'll move right over to Patrick. Do you have an update for us, Patrick? On anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've met recently
Yeah.
at the plant. We've got a contractor on board as part of the design team, and hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have that completed and be in a position to move into construction. The intent is to complete the upgrades, phase 1 upgrades, as soon as possible, ideally by October. It may be later in the year, but certainly completing this year is something that we're targeting. We've also hired the same firm that recently worked on the rehabilitation of the leaking manholes. They're going to be over here next week, I think, to go through a condition assessment inspection of all of them. There's about 110 or so in the sewer collection system. And that will be part of the development of the asset management plan and program for the system. So starting with this highest priority pieces being the plant itself and the manholes, the sewer collection system. We may have to follow up on that with maybe we send some cameras down some of the older pipes. We'll get some advice from this firm. Infrastruct is the name of the firm, and they specialize in rehabilitation of sewer and drainage systems mostly. The other thing that we'll be looking at in terms of the operation is our testing and reporting, the frequency of the testing that we're doing. We've got eco-fluid. They'll be coming over on a regular basis, monthly or so, to start with, to go over with Dewey, how he's operating. There wasn't a lot. I think he is doing a good job, is the feedback we got from them, and that there's not obvious deficiencies in the way that the plant's being operated that could be corrected. But El felt that would be helpful to have them come over regularly and go through everything with him and just make sure that we're doing everything we can to optimize.
Great.
So that's really the plans. And the other thing that we're looking to look at, and we'll get Urban Systems or their electrical subconsultant to help us look at the possibility of interconnecting the controls of the pump stations so that they're not they wouldn't pump at the same time and cause operational problems that way.
Okay.
So that's it in a nutshell. What we're
yeah, and I just want to say from the perspective of the committee, I think we appreciated being invited along on the tour, the councilor's tour of the facility. It helps a lot to understand how it works and what we're dealing with, and to be able to visualize it. So it was worthwhile. So thanks for that. Any questions for Patrick before we move on to Kristen? No,
Nope.
Is Kristen? There we are. Kristen, do you want to move into our finance presentation here? If that's okay.
Certainly. I'm just going to follow the agenda. There's a couple of things under finance. So the first thing is a referral to the Snug Cove Local Advisory Committee proposed amendment to Snug Cove Sewer Specified Area and Local Management Committee Purpose and Establishment Bylaw number 10/2000. That's a mouthful. Okay. So the accompanying report that went to council on March 28th, last Monday night, has been attached to the agenda for information, and I'll just give you a high-level summary of it. There is wording in the Snug Cove Sewer Local Area, Specified Area and Establishment Bylaw that requires that the funding for sewer comes solely from the properties within the specified area. So in order to align that funding source of general municipal revenues with a capital project located within the boundaries of the sewer district, I suggested to council that it would be appropriate to remove the word solely from the bylaw. And then secondly, to insert an additional section which can provide the tools for council to ensure that they're very clear and transparent about when they make decisions to use general municipal revenue for a project in a specified area, that they pass a resolution before approving any funding or any transfer of financing or anyway. So that way it's out there and it's much more clear and there's much more accountability for the transfer of those funds. So I brought that proposed amendment to council, and I wouldn't want to recommend council amend a bylaw without having the committee look at it. So my recommendation to council was to refer it to the Snug Cove Sewer Local Management Committee, as well as the Finance Advisory Committee, and just get some feedback. So I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it or not yet, or if you had anything that came to mind that would cause you concern for that proposed amendment to the establishment bylaw, and if you would have any feedback or comments that you would like to provide to council.
So my understanding is that the recommendation is to just remove the word solely. Is that really it?
Two, the first is remove the word solely, and second, add a clause that should council make or want to use general municipal revenues on a Snug Cove sewer capital project, that they pass a resolution declaring that project to be of island-wide significance, which will create that message to the community that this project is of extreme importance that needs to be funded from monies outside of the Snug Cove Sewer District. I'm looking for that clause to create a more transparent and a more, just increase the level of transparency for any transfers that go in between funds.
Right. Yeah. And I assume that the terms island-wide significance would be defended by staff for each situation that came up in the future. It's something that there would be some sort of reason. Like, you don't have to determine that at this point. What is island-wide significance? It's just moving forward. I personally, I don't have an issue with this recommendation.
Yeah, neither do I.
Okay.
Do we need any kind of formal recommendation to council, Steph, do you think?
That would be great. Say that the committee
Supports the revised wording, proposed wording.
okay, the committee supports the proposed. Oh, I have one here, sorry.
The Snug Cove Sewer System Local Management Committee provide the following comments.
Okay, we'll get rid of that. Yeah, we'll just say
Support.
support the proposed amendments. 2.
I just want to point out that per the terms of reference, I'm a voting member of this committee.
Okay.
So I haven't participated in the conversation and I won't, but I'll vote the way I did at council, which was a no.
Did you want to expand on that at all, Alice?
Yeah, could you want to share your rationale for that with the other members, please?
please.
Well, we've got financial policies, and when we discussed them very clearly, that it was that the utilities would pay their own way. And I quite agree with that.
I mean, if for further information, I mean, my position on it would be, I do believe that that for the most part, the Snug Cove local area should be treated as a local area, and it should be a user pay system. But I do believe that there are circumstances such as this, to a certain degree, that need to be considered, and that would be my rationale behind having at least an option for council to make different choices. I think that Snug Cove should be recognized to a certain degree as an area that the island as a whole benefits from to a certain degree, and I think that that would be my rationale. So do we want to move ahead with a vote on that recommendation then? David, do you have any further comments on it?
No, I completely agree with you, Glenn.
Okay. Do you want to make that recommendation then, David?
Can I get the wording on that actually?
Yeah,
The Snug Cove Sewer Local Management Committee support the proposed amendment to Snug Cove Sewer Specified Area and Establishment Bylaw number 10, draft amendment bylaw number 5672022.
I would like to make a motion to approve the rewording of what Steph just said.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
So all in favor? Okay, and opposed? For the record, Allison's opposed. Okay, so we have passed the recommendation to council. Okay, so I guess we're still with Kristen on your 5-year plan here.
Okay, so I have a quick brief presentation for you, and I'll just take a moment to share my screen. Okay. So I suspect you're looking at it now.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start carrying on with that topic. On the same meeting, March 28th, 2022, council passed a second resolution, and they passed a resolution that, and I'll read it. Therefore, be it resolved that council direct $718,677 be repaid to accumulate operating surplus over a period of 7 years by property owners within the specified area through a combination of 25% user rate and 75% parcel tax. And that was carried. Councillor Morris was in support of that recommendation too. So the 5-year financial plan that I'm putting before you today, it does include revenue increases to fund a portion of the phase 1 upgrade costs. The project, just to clarify for yourselves and for the public, the project is going ahead right now. It's being paid for by general municipal reserves, but over the course of the next 7 years, $718,677 will be transferred from the sewer local service area funds to accumulated operating surplus. And these transfers will be paid for by a combination of user fees and parcel taxes. So Snug Cove Sewer, the 5-year financial plan, it includes new parcel taxes and increased user rates to fund the cost of these transfers. So I did some work to look at who was paying what within the Snug Cove Sewer District. And over the course of 2021, I found that user rates were generally paid. 44% of all user rates came from the single residential property owners, and commercial or multifamily, other types of properties were paying 56% of all user rates. So the amount that's to be collected over the next 7 years works out to $718,677. And the annual amount to be collected and transferred to the general accumulated operating surplus fund is $102,668. So the proposed that was accepted by council was to fund 75% of that through parcel tax, and 25% of that through user rates. So that works out to a split of $77,001 and $25,667 of the annual rate increase is being driven by this transfer.
Quick question, Kristen.
Yeah.
Can you define the multifamily and other in that? What's multifamily as opposed to residential, like a duplex kind of thing? Or would that be?
The new building at Trunk Road would be a
Okay.
multifamily.
Okay.
So any kind of more than, I mean, we don't have the information to know where people have secondary suites in all cases. So any kind of single residential would be that single residential. Although it may have a secondary suite that gets picked up in the user rates through the additional consumption. But anything, yeah, so the townhouses and all of those buildings, they would all, the actual rates they're being charged aren't any different. I'm just saying those people tend to pay a percentage of the overall budget for the sewer district. So
And what
yeah, there's no differentiation between those rates.
Okay. And the other question I had just in regards to the parcel tax then, I would assume that it being a parcel tax, it would be deferrable by people who are eligible to defer their property taxes. Is that correct?
If they're eligible to access the provincial deferral program, then yes, it is. It's eligible. So moving on. Taking a look at what typical residence pays for sewer last year, there were 3 billing periods. We bill at the end of May, we bill at the end of September to capture the summer usage, and we last year we billed in January to capture the fall and winter early part of that. So an average residential bill was for, you can see there's a whole lot of variability in the billings based on the seasonality of those bills. The summer usage is quite apparent where it's quite high at $492 as a typical billing. But if you kind of smooth that out over the course of the full year, a typical residential sewer billing comes out to $1,126 for the year. And that worked out to about $94 a month.
Sorry to interrupt you. When I'm looking at my municipal bill for the commercial property in the Cove, it's separated into water and sewer. So this is specifically sewer. And
it is, yeah.
The water portion goes to the water specifically. So the sewer portion of that bill is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I'm not conflating the water and adding that onto it. Right. So Cove Bay Water is in addition to that.
Yep.
So in order to collect the additional port of the cost to do the transfer through the user rates, it would require a 10.4 increase to sewer user rates. So 44% of that overall increase works out to about 11,293. So that would equate to about a 10.4 increase on top of a typical average annual residential user rate. So it would have an impact of about $117 per residential user. And the parcel tax divided by the number of properties works out to about 664. Now that number could change because council does have the option to select who should or should not be subject to that parcel tax. Council could elect to not include unconnected properties in order to relieve them of that parcel tax until such time as those properties could connect to the plant. So there's a couple of options there. So this is just for information, and that number is certainly subject to change based on which way council wants to go.
Is there currently a Latecomers fee for? Well, I would assume there is. There's a Latecomers fee for the sewer connections.
There's a Latecomers fee that Latecomers are attached to very specific projects and costs of very specific projects. So the entire cost of the extension down Miller Road is captured within a Latecomers agreement. So any of those properties that benefit from that particular Miller Road extension, they have a very defined connection fee that is charged. It's in a bylaw, and it it's identified right within that bylaw, the cost of those benefiting properties, what they would have to pay if they were to connect. It's to recoup the cost of the infrastructure that went down Miller Road back in
Right, and it's
2017.
based on the value of the asset. So I'm wondering if council decided to impose the parcel tax on all properties within the area, whether or not they're connected, would it impact your latecomer fee later down the line if you chose to connect? Would you
No,
it wouldn't
No.
at all?
no, the latecomer fee is established once, it's put in a bylaw and it doesn't change.
So even after this asset is added to the system, the latecomers fee is going to be the same?
And it's only, again, it's only for those properties that are identified in the bylaw. And it is those properties that are connecting to the, like it's a specific latecomers agreement in relation to the extension down Miller Road. There's no latecomers agreements that are still valid about any of the other properties and
Okay.
about, yeah, it's tied to that particular Snug Cove House extension down Miller Road.
So if let's just say the Birch project was to move forward, is that part of that extension?
I believe it is. Because that lot 3 was one of the benefiting properties from that construction.
Okay, thank you.
The impact to user rates from the increase that would likely be attributed to those multifamily and commercial properties, about 14,374. It's really hard to say what a typical commercial other user would pay, because there's so much variability within all of those categories. But then again, there's the parcel tax on each property of $664. Just as what I've putting forth for sewer rate proposal for the ensuing years, year 2022 to 2026. So we have the base rate budget that was in effect in 2021. It was $247,300. So we know we need to collect an additional $25,000, and then that is the amount needed to do the transfer to accumulate operating surplus. And then we're adding an increment to cover cost of living and inflation and any other kinds of pressures that we face. So the budget for 2022 is being increased to $289,042. And then we have planned increases in 2023 to 2026 of anywhere between 8 and 10.5%. So looking at year 2, rates likely will be around 313,000. And by the end of year 5, it is possible to expect that rates could be inflated up to as high of 423,000. But again, there's so much unknown around that because of the size and the extent of the capital work that is being undertaken now. And operating costs are definitely going to be influenced by the projects and the capital work that is undertaken at the moment. So again, like many of our districts, we still just don't have enough information at this point to know what those types of capital upgrades and improvements, what they're going to, what kind of operational impacts they're going to have. So we've put some just numbers in there just to kind of signal that we definitely need to go higher, because the other side of it is we need to replenish the sewer reserves.
So that's based on a 7-year repayment plan.
The 25,667.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
So the amounts of the overall collection, sewer collection in each of the 5 years goes anywhere from 127,178 in year 1 up to 186,178 in year 5. So that 5-year spread could see an average residential annual charge go from 1311 up to 1919. And then for the annual amount that's shared among all of those commercial or the multifamily or the other properties. I said it is an average, but it's just, I mean, I know that many of the properties pay much more in excess of $7,000 per year in sewer fees. But if we just did a straight average, it would range from 7,000 in year 1 up to 10,771 in year 5. I just wanted to look at the revenue just for this year. So once we add in the impact of the parcel taxes and the increased utility rates, total revenue in the sewer district will increase to 366,000 in this year. That's coming from the new parcel tax revenue and from the new utility rate requirements. In the budget for the operating budget, overall budget is 254,096. The first line item is sewer operations municipal staff. I did see some, I think there is some confusion in the community if the sewer treatment plant is contracted out or whether it's run in-house. So just to clarify, the sewer operations are in fact municipal staff, and Patrick does use consultants from time to time when they need additional technical support.
So is Dewey taking a pay cut? I'm not sure.
That's Dewey.
Who's getting their pay?
Well, there's other municipal staff as well. We do allocate a portion of administrative overhead and staffing to the sewer specified area, as well as just direct operations staff. So it's not just one person. There's a kind of a couple of people that are, all of the water systems have an administrative overhead allocation as well as a direct operational staff.
So, Kristen, it's Allison. In the salary, the 2021 actual is higher because there was some sort of retroactive stuff in the union settlement.
Yeah.
Which that's why your going forward number is lower.
Yep, that's right, Councillor Morris. We with the implementation of the collective agreement, there were some one-time costs associated with that, which are not recurring costs for this year. We are going into negotiations again, and we will be renegotiating the collective agreement. It expires December 31st. So that is something that we don't know what those contractual labor obligation costs are, but we'll start bargaining in the fall, so we'll have some idea then.
Oh yeah.
This year we are looking to reduce travel costs, but we are maintaining our costs for professional development and training. We've added a little bit of a provision for consulting based on last year's experience. We just know that we need to have an amount in there. We are facing very steep pressures on our insurance costs. All of the renewals coming in, we find that they're double-digit increases. I think that's the typical of the insurance market worldwide, but they're much higher than cost of living amounts when it comes to insurance, that's for sure. And our budget last year for rent and utilities was 15,300. We only spent 10,912 of it. So I reduced that a little bit based on last year's experience there. Then for the 5 years going out, I really just kind of inflate those by 2% across the board each year, just to kind of show a pattern and a trend. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about the transfers to other funds. So in these last 3 rows here, you can see these are the transfers that are going to accumulated operating surplus and transfers to the actual sewer district reserves. So this line item, transfer to special works reserve, this is your annual contribution to sewer reserves. It's shown on that line there. And the second one is the annual transfer of $102,668, which will go to accumulated operating surplus every year for the next 7 years for the phase 1 upgrades. Then looking a little bit about the capital expenditures. Patrick just kind of wants to wait and see what comes of the phase one upgrade, the work that's out there now. He has asked that we put a $40,000 provision in to continue the work that's being done to deal with the inflow and the infiltration. And we are also just putting in a provision there of 20,000 and 15 and 20,000 in the outer years for equipment failure or replacement. Those are all funded through sewer reserves. And then there's the $1.6 million capital project for the phase one upgrades. And that's initially being funded through a combination of capital renewal and replacement reserve funds.
So the actual for 2021 for that phase one renewal. So we actually spent $300,000 towards the phase one renewal project in 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's kind of similar work. It was work. Patrick, do you want to just speak to it a little bit? It's work that was done with Urban Systems to kind of do an assessment. And Patrick, can you help me with that?
Yeah, well, it was the preliminary design work for the overall upgrades, including phase 1 and 2, as well as the related geotechnical and environmental studies.
So it's related to phase 1, but it's outside the 1.6. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was not funded with sewer reserves. It was funded from capital renewal as well. Other capital expenditures in 2021, it's a combination of things. One was about 220 was the municipal cost to connect the library. So that was paid with municipal funds because it's our library. And then the remaining 75 were lift station repairs. They were funded through sewer reserves.
That's the one down in the marina.
Yeah.
The lift station. Right.
Okay.
So were those funds being reimbursed as well?
Nope, they were approved in the 2021 budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kristen?
Yeah.
What another revenue line of 30-odd thousand? What was that for 21 actual?
I'm not seeing what you're seeing.
I'm not in the capital expenditure. I was going back a couple of slides. The big one that showed the whole spreadsheet. So I think maybe back one slide. Yeah, that one. So what's that 30,000 actual in other revenue in 2021?
Up the top.
That is some capacity charges that were charged for the fire hall, and I think for the library to pay to come on to the sewer.
That Latecomer charges?
Oh yeah, and Latecomer, you're right.
Okay, so to the extent that it's Latecomer, doesn't it, is that considered in a transfer to BIM? Because it was BIM that paid all the work and we were recovering with Latecomers.
Well, I guess it would require a review of the bylaw. It seems that the bylaw's intent is to charge all of those properties and put those monies into the sewer reserves. So it's worth a review of that bylaw for those two particular properties, the library and the
For the Latecomer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go back and look at it then. I didn't think attention for the expansion and connections, but okay.
Sewer fund balances. The opening sewer fund balance this year is $112,586. And at the end of 2021, there was surplus of $12,869, which was deposited, and then $74,043 was taken out to fund that lift station repair. So that leaves us with opening balance of 2022, 51,000. So under the 5-year plan, there's contributions to increase that reserve each year, and then it's reduced by those earmarked capital projects. So at the end of 5 years, if all went to plan, the sewer would be replenishing its reserves and be able to start building up some capital surplus there of 203,338. But we know things change in 5 years. And so it will be necessary to reassess that budgeted revenue requirement each year, ensuring that all of the increased contributions and funds are set aside, that they're sufficient to fund all of the capital costs to ensure that the sewer does reach long-term financial sustainability. And this year we'll be doing that in concert with a Cove Bay water rate review that we have committed to undertake with Cove Bay. We discussed that last night at the Cove Bay meeting. We just want to have some experience now with the new properties that have hooked up to the sewer in the Cove. David, your building is a significant addition to sewer and water, and it may kind of change the distribution of consumption costs a little bit. So just have a little bit of experience there so we can kind of predict the patterns a little bit, and then we can work to come up with some new rate proposals. And it just makes sense that while we're looking at consumption, which is based on water, that we'll look at this budget revenue collection number for the sewer when we have that information at the same time from Cove Bay. So I expect that's going to be the timing on that. And that's it.
Okay.
Patrick has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, it's a similar discussion we had with the Cove Bay Committee. The budget and the projected expenditures don't really reflect recapitalization of the system, capital replacement work in any way other than the phase 1 upgrades. I would expect that there will be more costs required than what's shown here. And so I guess we're going to have to, when we get to the budget next year, those rates are the amount of revenue is going to need to be substantially more. We might want to indicate that in this 5-year plan, similar as what we did for Cove Bay. Assume that we're going to be spending, not 20,000 a year, something closer to 100,000 a year. That reflect that and what the revenue requirements are going to have to be. And that's, we don't have the asset management plan, and so we're not really able to put good numbers to that. But the reserves are just far too low for any kind of, anything substantial would require parcel tax borrowing, right? There's no real ability to respond. And this 5-year plan doesn't provide that. So we could defer that till next year when we have better information. It might be an idea to give people a sense that a more realistic expectation that, rates going up 6 to 10% a year, it's going to be more than that. Do we want to put that message out there?
Well, that was where I was going to lead the questioning into is this is all very straightforward for what I can see for phase 1, but we're talking about a capital project that's multi-phased, and where does this leave us? The first question that comes to mind is we have a formula with the phase 1 financing of the 1.6 and how that's going to be distributed amongst the local area as opposed to the island wide. Is that formula going to be replicated for phase 2? With the knowledge that the phase 2 is significantly more, is there grant opportunities that will be available for phase 2, considering we've started this work with the community's money now? Will that, I'm just trying to get a better sense, because we're just really looking at the first step in the process. Phase 1 just brings us up to be current. We still don't have capacity for growth. Until phase 2 happens, that's really stagnating this community. And I want to understand what is phase 2. We just haven't really talked too much about it as far as, and I know it's very difficult with numbers and projections and that kind of thing. But my my hope would be is that we're going to roll right into phase two, because as I say, we have no ability to grow Snug Cove at all until we have that completed. But I know it's a big number, and I don't know how that's going to be handled. Is that a conversation that we're having at this point?
We'd originally, I originally put forward proposal that phase one construction and design work for phase two proceed this year. That's been pulled back, the design portion, it's been deferred. I think that was an estimated 460,000 additional cost. And that was, so that's not showing up anywhere. So essentially this budget doesn't roll right into phase two. It defers it to consideration next year. And that's my understanding of the direction that came from council.
Which is my worry. You mean, my worry is that we're moving forward quite quickly with phase one, which is great. Obviously, we have a lot of people who are really just dangling right now to know whether or not they can build and things like that. But my hope was that we can have a plan in place to move right into phase two, because as I say, without phase two, we're still really in the same situation that we are.
I have to leave you guys. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
Well, that would involve adding what, 450,000 to the capital budget
get that
for
going
this year.
Right.
And that's obviously not in what was just presented. So that would.
And is there any sense of how phase two will be approached when it comes to funding? I don't know. Maybe this is a question for Liam. Is there options out there for grants? Is there the ability for us to? The big question on a lot of people's minds is the formula going to be the same for phase two in regards to the funding?
We'll have to dig in a little deeper to determine what the formula will actually look like. But just from initial scoping, this is, again, needs more detailed work, but maybe a 75-25% split, 75% allocated to new development, 25 to existing development. We have to zero in on what elements of the project are truly benefiting the existing population and what is truly benefiting new capacity for new development. There's certain elements of the upgrade that are are going to be required regardless of new development. And so we want to basically be able to identify those and split those out. So for example, the outfall definitely needs improvement. And that's regardless of whether we have new development or not. So what elements can be attributed to which type of service that we're providing. In terms of grant funding, it'd be a big stretch to think that we could get grant funding for the project. If we do have another funding program available to us that would support sewer projects, it's also likely to support drinking water projects too. And generally, the provincial funding is, especially for sewer and water, is focused on helping existing populations meet emerging regulations. And so it definitely doesn't support new development because they identify that there's multiple different financial tools available to local governments to support new development without using grant funding. So that basically development pays for development. That's their motto. And so if we're looking at a funding opportunity, we'll have to weigh that against other priorities like drinking water across the island. So for other systems that are in drinking water needs. And because in reality, even if we were able to apply, and in the low likelihood that we were successful, they wouldn't pay for any of the new capacity for new development. They would only support the elements for existing. And so if 25% of the project is for existing, we would get whatever funding contribution they would contribute to only 25% of the project. I mean, it's better than nothing, but we have to weigh that against other priorities across the island too.
You had mentioned in a previous meeting that it would be worthwhile to reach out to the development community and see what plans are, and see if there's appetite for this. I think that's a significant step that we need to take, because I think it's important that everybody knows as well that if the 75% of the phase 2's cost is going to land on future development shoulders, what is that development going to look like? It's pretty hard to bring affordable anything to the Snug Cove if that's the case.
Yeah, and so exactly right. As we further develop and pursue development cost charge, then we have to have that engagement with the development community. And with certainty, development has to pay for development. Like there's no other really way around it. We're once we get through phase 1, I really do believe that we have to ensure that going forward, all new development is paying its own way. So whether you're in Snug Cove or you're outside of a sewer area, you're going to have to figure out your water and sewer. And so that just becomes an element of your, and that you're right, that cost just gets passed on to the end user, the whether it's commercial or residential property owner.
Yeah, it would be reflected in rental rates. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, or purchase price. But
yeah.
But for developers, to your point, Glenn, they need to know, like, well, what is that minimum price point that they have to be able to afford to get the development going, to then do their pro forma to make sure that they can get a return on their investment. And so, yeah, we need to do a little more work internally on the DCC itself, and then we would engage the community for the development community. This wouldn't be like just everybody's welcome type project or meeting.
Yeah, no, that's all my point is, and there's a lot of discussion around this budget, a lot of discussion around the phase 1. I just want to make sure that we are really maintaining that focus on the next step as well, because it's a bigger step. It's a lot more time, and I would love to have those conversations earlier rather than later. But right now, I think we've got the recommendation on the table. Unless, David, do you have any more comments or questions about?
No, I don't.
Okay. So the recommendation that the Snug Cove Sewer System Local Management Committee recommend that council direct staff to include the draft Snug Cove Sewer System 2022 to 2026 budget as presented at its March 31st, 2022 meeting in the Bowen Island Municipality 2022-2026 5-year financial plan. That's a mouthful as well. David, do you want to make a motion for that? Yeah, so I think that we'll pass that recommendation by unanimous consent, noting our other comments about phase 2 as well. So, other business. Anything?
I just wanted to point out that, we've been talking about the wastewater plant, phase 1, phase 2. There's also the rest of the system, which is varying ages. Some parts of it are older. We haven't talked about a capital replacement program for the pipes in the ground and the rest of the sewer system infrastructure. And that was my point from earlier, is that separately, even from this, the sewer plant upgrade requirements, there's going to be other capital replacement requirements that aren't reflected anywhere. And in the budgets that we've been talking about, or the proposed rate increases. So higher revenue requirements are to be expected than what we've talked about here. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's understandable.
We can defer that to a later time next year.
Okay.
I think we just lost
Did
our
you go
chair.
golfing?
Oh, did we just?
Oh, it's my tee off time.
Yeah. I think we
It was
just,
so
well,
fun.
we're basically wrapped up here. I
You just went away on vacation just like that. He's gone.
think I'm
His
done.
emotion. Patrick, you got snubbed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
David, you're the
I
chair.
think
now.
as the other committee member, I might be able to bring this meeting to a close here. Unless there's any other further comments or questions. Okay,
Sounds like we're done.
Glenn's gonna start trying to log back in and we're all gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
serves him right. Thanks,
Yeah.
David.
All right,
Thanks, all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.